Brothers and sisters, I'm your host, Brother Willie Muhammad of I Have a Testimony, and we welcome you to another episode.
God came to us to seek and to save that which was lost. He raised a man from among us.
He, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, laid the foundation. What I'm doing is something that comes from him through me, and the thing that he uses in me to do the work is my faith in him and the word that he taught. To produce men and women who wanted to clean up their life and build an independent nation for the glory of God.
Welcome back, family, and we thank you all for your continued support and your feedback. I know you haven't seen me a while on these airwaves. You know, sometimes I wait until I have the actual spirit to want to do an interview. And I recently traveled to the great city of Phoenix, Arizona, and that spirit hit me about coming back and doing an actual interview, right? So what we have today, family, is we are here and we have with us our brother. I'll be bringing him on shortly. Student minister, Brother Abdul Halim Muhammad. And he's the student minister of Muhammad Mosque number 32 in Phoenix. Let me bring him on. Assalamu alaikum, my brother.
Wa alaikum salam, Brother Willie. How are you, sir?
I'm grateful by the grace of Allah, my brother, and thankful as well. Thank you for accepting our invitation or our request to be a guest on I Have a Testimony.
Well, I'm honored that you would allow us to say something. Hopefully we could be an asset to your wonderful program. But no, the honor, I mean, very selfish, Brother Willie, the honor and the pleasure is all mine. You can't have any. It's all mine. Thank you, sir.
Well, praise due to Allah. I definitely believe that you can definitely be a great asset. So let's get straight to it, my brother. And my first question I would like to ask you is, can you take us back to the moment or the period in your life when the teachings of the Most High Elijah Muhammad first reached your heart?
Reach my heart. That's a good question. So what I can say, let me give a little context. My coming to faith, well, I think everyone's journey to faith is fascinating. Whenever you see someone, how Allah guided them here or there, you can tell it's a divine hand because it's never something that is mediocre or something that's kind of blah. It's always fascinating. And I don't think mine's any exception. I think, like all of us, our journey started not even at birth, but at conception. But then it takes a palatable, tangible form. And I think it started with me, brother, when I was in college. So in fact, I was sharing this with the believers today that before I came to Islam, I was an atheist. And if you had told me that I would be involved with organized religion, I would have never believed it. But I took a class in college called Sex, Racism, and Violence. And in this class, there were two books that on the syllabus to read that had a profound impact on me. It began this journey. One was So Nice. It was written by Eldridge Cleaver, the former Black Panther. And the other one was a book called Black Rage, written by these two psychologists, Greer and Cobbs. And the Greer in Greer and Cobbs was the father of David Allen Greer. He was this psychiatrist. But these two books started me on this journey, brother, on this quest. So like many of us, I didn't even know that we had a history that was worthy to speak of. So but now my eyes are being opened and I'm doing instinctively what the Quran says to do, which was to read. And I would go to the library, brother, and I would just get books. And anything about the struggle, I would devour them. Like 2, 3, 4, one time getting 7 books in the library and just reading. And there was a brother, he wasn't in my circle, my orbit, but he was the biological brother of one of the brothers who was in my circle. He wasn't that much older, like a year or two. But I don't know how I came to this realization, but he had been in this journey too. He started giving me books to read. And he was like my sheikh, just kind of guiding me. And one of the books he gave to me was a book by Hakeem Abudi, whose given name was Donnell Lee. He's from Chicago. And many of us have heard the minister talk about these nationalists who left him when the minister said that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was still alive. And that's one of them. And he wrote a book called Enemies Clash of Races. And that book was just astounding to me, brothers, eye-opening. And the other book he gave me to read was the autobiography of Malcolm X. And when I read Malcolm's autobiography, I fell in love with Malcolm, brother. I fell in love with him. And at the end of the book, I looked very narrowly on the nation, very narrowly on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but I was a Malcolm brother. And then in the 1982, so there was this brother, well, the brother who was like my sheikh, he went to volunteer for the NAACP at Juneteenth. And so he's doing like voter registration, something like that, right? He brings his flyer to me about this brother who's going to be speaking. And his name was Dennis X. And he's talking about the Nation of Islam, right? And there was a name I had never read before, I'd never heard of. I couldn't pronounce it, but I remember the letters. The first letters were Farra, right? And I never heard of it, couldn't pronounce it. And I said, the Nation of Islam, are these guys still around? Because I think without realizing it, brother, I thought everyone who read Malcolm's autobiography had the same journey that I did. Again, it wasn't conscious, and it didn't become conscious till I saw this flyer. Because I thought that when Brother Malcolm so-called exposed Elijah and so-called exposed the nation, I thought that everyone was like me, that Malcolm showed the truth, that he was the real one. And like me, I left the nation and I left Elijah when he did. So I just assumed everyone else did. I was stunned that people still believe this. And brother, I don't know why I even went to the meeting, because ordinarily I would have just dismissed it, but there was something that drove me to go. And the only answer I can tell you that drove me to go was Allah himself. And I went there. And so a part of what made me an atheist, I would ask questions, brother. And the answers weren't satisfactory to me. This time, so Brother Dennis, he's, whatever he was saying, and I like what I heard, but I was like, well, this party's about to end, because I'm about to ask this man some questions. He ain't gonna answer, right? So I said, well, brother, what about A, B, and C? And he said, well, brother, D, E, and F. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, brother, what about L, M, and O? And he said, brother, listen, it's Q, R, and S. And his answers, but they satisfied me. And that was my journey, brother. I hadn't heard anything from the Honorable Mr. Farrakhan. I knew he was, but Brother Dennis was my first exposure. And it didn't take me long, because this was June of '82. The Honorable Mr. Farrakhan comes to the University of Buffalo in September of '82, so about 3 months. And in that 3 months, even though I wasn't registered, brother, in my mind, I was an FOI. In my mind, I was there. I'm a part of the Nation of Islam. Even though organized religion was not a part of my life, I never heard, brother, my mother even quote the Bible. Never. I never heard my mom say, if we're going through something, she would say, well, Jesus said so and so and so and so, or you remember now what God says in the Bible, this and that. My mother didn't quote the Bible. I never saw my mother read the Bible. And I'm not saying this in a spirit of disparagement or judgment. I'm just, giving actual facts. This was the atmosphere, the climate of my home. So for me to go from that to coming to faith is, for me, extraordinary, but it was. And this was my genesis, brother. That was the beginning of my journey coming to faith. Brother Willie, I made many, many mistakes in my life, brother. I made, unfortunately, many bad decisions I've made. But the one decision that I can say without any hesitation, without any reservation, the best decision that I made was the day that I decided to become a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the Honorable Mr. Farrakhan's leadership. So I've made many mistakes. Some I'm literally still paying for. But that decision, brother, is really, it helps to compensate for all the other unfortunate decisions that I may have made.
Wow, beautiful. I add you to the list because Dr. Wesley talked about how he came into the Nation of Islam as an atheist as well. And that's a big jump from going to not believing in God to believing in God. And a follow-up question I would like to ask is, you talked about you had this narrow view. So how were you able to get past that narrow view of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam?
It's an excellent question, brother. Um,
Praise be to
I think that, well, first, let me go to the God. As I look back, it wasn't the fact I didn't believe in God. It was the fact I didn't believe in the unnatural elements that white people imposed on what God was. I didn't have the intellectual wherewithal to be able to, really give some quality feedback. All I knew is that when I would ask questions and people would try to answer it, and it would then solicit more questions from me. And at a certain point, they would say, well, you can't question God. Well, that didn't make sense to me. So at a certain point, when I went to college, I met other thinkers who had similar questions that I did, and they were called atheists. So I said, well, I must be one too, because I think like that. But when the Quran says like this, that nay, we hurl truth against falsehood, and so we knock out his brains. What happened to me? That was all falsehood. This idea of what I was told God was, this was spookism, brother. And so then when truth came, I embraced it because I'm looking for truth. I'm looking for something or someone to give me truth. And so it really kind of dovetails to your question about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The Honorable Mr. Farrakhan, brother, just blew me away. Now, I didn't know too much about the Black struggle. I mean, like many of us at that time, Jesse Jackson was probably the most preeminent, spokesperson for us. And there were other lesser lights. But if I remember correctly, Reverend Jackson was the preeminent. And this isn't to disparage any of them. These are all brilliant men. I thank Allah for whatever contribution they made on our behalf. I thank Allah for them. But, brother, the moon looks impressive until the sun comes out. And when I saw the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, brother, he eclipsed anything else. So what he did and be able to give a truth about God, a truth about us and our condition, and in answer to your question, brother, a truth about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that did it. I'm not going to tell you it was overnight, but as I look back, it didn't take long. It wasn't like years for me, brother. It was a few months. And at that point, I was a believer, brother. I embraced that as truth. So it was the minister, his way. And I can't take away anything from Brother Dennis. He was my first teacher. He was the one who guided me to faith. Again, and it was Brother Dennis who introduced the minister to me, made me love him, helped me to see him in a deeper way. Well, it had to be deeper because I knew virtually nothing about him prior. But Brother Dennis, I owe him a debt of gratitude for what he did and how he helped to shape me and mold me as my first teacher in Islam. And when he introduced me to the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, his wisdom, his sincerity, his love. I mean, I had never met anything like that at all. He was just this presence that was awesome to me. I found it to be astounding. And like they say, brother, the rest is history.
Wow, beautiful, man. And salute to and all praises due to Allah for Brother Dennis and the role that he played. So you go from atheist, narrow view of the Most High Elijah Muhammad and the teachings, because what you read from the book Malcolm X's autobiography, to now you're a student minister in Phoenix, Arizona, and prior to that, you were a student minister in Buffalo. So my next question I would like to ask is, when did you sense that Allah was calling you into the ministry? Did you even have that? And how did you know, it was more than just a desire?
That's a good question, brother. I will tell you, brother. Now, again, you have to remember my background, the context. I'm not into religion. Organized religion is not a part of me. But I was so awed by the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, brother. I mean, so when I heard him over the time, Well, let me just say that I'm gonna answer your question, give it a little context. So now I'm from Buffalo, New York, of course, and Buffalo is the home of Rick James. So I was a big Rick James fan, brother, and I was a huge Prince fan before Prince blew up. So uh, so here I am bored in my courses, and I would write the lyrics of like so back then in the early 80s, Dirty Mind, that was Prince's album, right? And Street Songs with Super Freak and Give It to Me, Baby. I feel like I got to take a shower even telling you the names of these titles, these songs, right? But these I would write them, I would write the lyrics as I'm sitting there bored during class. And then the minister had this album. It was called Where's Your Head? And it was the Jack the Rapper. And he did this lecture out of Atlanta, Georgia. But I would play this like I was playing Dirty Mind. I would play this like I was playing street songs or any other songs that were there. So now I'm not playing anymore the lyrics. I mean, I'm still going to, it's a gradual process, but that's still my music and whatnot. But something is happening to me. And now the lyrics, the words of the minister is coming out. I played so much, brother. At one time, I knew that whole, especially side one, I knew it almost verbatim, like I was listening to music. And so one day, I don't remember what it was, brother Willie, but I said to myself, it was a private thought. I said, I want to be a minister. I didn't tell anybody. I just thought that, but it was because of him. It was the minister, his representation was so awesome to me. He made wisdom and knowledge so attractive. And so it wasn't the applause. I think a lot of people would like the applause. They're enamored with how his personality, his brilliance. And I can't say they weren't factors because they were. But the main factor, the main thing that drove that desire was how he made wisdom and knowledge so attractive. And then one day, I remember this. I don't know if he probably doesn't remember this, Brother Dennis, but I had been fasting when no one else was fasting. I'm fasting on my own. And I'm still in college. And so I remember he was sitting at this desk, and I think he asked me if I was fasting. I told him yes. And I remember him looking at me like a proud father, just kind of nodding, smiling, just kind of looking at me. And then he had me to open up. It was, I don't remember exactly what the time lapse was, but it wasn't too long afterwards. He had me to open up. I bombed. I did a terrible job, right? It was just, it was very embarrassing, brother. But he had me to keep going. But even prior to that, so Brother Dennis would have me to conduct study group. And now, brother, this was very trying for me. So this is before cell phones. We were part of this little store, not storefront, but a little office space. And initially we were in this bookstore called Arami Bookstore. We shared it we would have our services, our classes, and then eventually across the hall, we had our own space. But Brother Dennis would call Harambe, and the proprietor, the owner, his name is Brother Kenny Holly. And I was my given name was Brother Donald. And he said, Brother Donald, Brother Dennis wants to talk to you. And so Brother Dennis would say to me, you have me to conduct study group. Brother Willie, I would be livid. I'm livid, brother. I'm cussing like, not to him, not to Brother Dennis. I'm cussing like a sailor. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just, brother, I'm livid. And so he would have me do it. And after a while, I got acclimated to it. After a while, I would just do it. But so he first started me just holding study group. And then it kind of emerged or graduated into opening up. And then we had a little controversy. Brother Dennis was given time out the mosque. And so eventually the minister would exonerate him of all wrongdoing, but he was out, he was in class F for a minute. I'm in college. But they would have me, so when I was living on campus. And so on the weekends, I would come back to Buffalo and I would teach on Sunday. I had no authority. All I would do was just teach. And then one day was November of 84. And the believers sent me to Phoenix, in fact, Scottsdale, Arizona. Brother Jabril was having a 2-day ministers meeting, and they sent me
Wow.
to represent Buffalo. Again, I had no authority. And there's a whole lot I remember that from that 2-day conference. One of the things I remember was that at the end, there was a receiving line for the minister, right? And I go to shake his hand, and I tell him, I was given, all of us were given the name Muhammad. So in November of 84, I was Donald Muhammad then, right? And I went to shake his hand, and I said, Brother Minister, I'm not a minister, right? And he said, well, if you were here, you were meant to be here. He said, and you can take the name Muhammad. So I became Donald Muhammad. And then a year later, in June of, it was either May or June of 85, yeah. So Brother Dennis, so at that time, now the minister exonerated him and put him as there wasn't student minister back then, it was just the minister, put him as the minister of Pittsburgh. And so Brother Dennis, Brother Ave, do you remember Brother Ave, Brother Willie? Brother
Yes,
Ave?
I remember.
Brother
His son
Ave.
is the student minister in Grand Rapids.
Yes, right. So Brother Ave, he was the student minister in Rochester, right? And Brother Jeff, I don't know if you know him, but he was Brother Jeff. So 4 of us went there, and the Honorable Mr. Farrakhan came to our humble little motel room, not even a hotel room, a motel room. He came to talk to us, and he stayed with us for a while. And so it was on that day where I officially became the minister of Buffalo. So that was either May or June of 85. And so the rest is history. So I'm there in Buffalo for about 25 years in that capacity. I come to Phoenix, and then now for about the last a little over 3 years now, I've been trying my best to serve the Honorable Mr. Farrakhan in this capacity here in Phoenix.
Wow, man. It's just interesting how things in our lives line up, right? Here,
It is, brother.
you end
It
up
is.
going to a two-day training for student ministers, and now decades later, look at where you're sitting, right? And
Yeah.
it's just interesting. And you mentioned, because this is leading to my next question, how your given name was Donald. You went there, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. You were once amongst those who were given the name Muhammad. But we know you are now Brother Abdul Halim Muhammad, and you receive your holy name from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So take us through that moment when you were given that Abdul Halim Muhammad, right? And just the impact of that.
That's a good question, Brother Willie. So it was in the mid-90s, and we were having somebody wanted to buy our mosque. And so I was getting some guidance from the minister what to do. So he told me to come to Chicago. And so I met with him in Chicago. And so we're talking about the mosque, talking about the building. He just gave me some counsel, some guidance. And then he said this, brother. He said that I know that you've been suffering. And he said, I'm kind of paraphrasing because it's been a long time now. It's been over 30 years since this happened. He says, I know that you've been suffering. He said, but you're going to see why you've been going through what you've been going through. And you'll see the end or the rewards of what you've been going through. And he said, and I want you to take the name Abdul Halim Muhammad. All right? Now, I had never heard the name Halim before. And there were those, Brother Willie, who I heard the minister say to them, well, I have a name for you. I have a name for you. I'm not going to tell you now, but I got a name for you. He never did that for me. So, it really wasn't a part of my thought about a name. I remember when Brother Kadir, who used to be Brother Anthony, I remember he got his name. I remember Brother Jamil got his name. He used to be Brother James. I remember when Brother Dr. Alim got his name. He was Brother Maurice. Brother Khalib, he got his name. He was, what's Khalib? Got his name. But I remember there was this, the people were getting their names. And, but again, he never said anything to me about mine. So I never had that kind of expectation. And so when I heard Halim, I didn't really like it a whole lot because I had never heard of it. I didn't know what it meant, and so when he said your wife can take the name Halima. And so when he said, oh, he said this too. He said he said that Allah can't use you in the condition that you're in. He said, I want you to take this name. And so when he gave me the name, I said, Brother man, so what does it mean? And he laughed, right? And he said, it's you. Now, I don't know why he laughed, Brother Willie, but I have a speculation as to why he laughed. Because I didn't really
What
like
is
it,
that?
because I never heard of it. What's that? I'm sorry,
Why
sir?
do you think he laughed? You say he
I
laughed.
think
Why do
he
you think he
laughed.
laughed?
I think he laughed because when I asked, what does it mean? Because I didn't want to say I didn't like it. So I said, well, what does it mean? Right. But that was the same response he did with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He didn't like it either. Right. And he said, well, what does it mean? So again, I don't know that to be true. Right. But I think that is the case. And then later, which Brother Jamil told me, he told me that when you look at Stevie Wonder's album, The Songs in the Key of Life, and Stevie Wonder dedicates that album. I know you're kind of young, Brother. Well, you remember the Songs in the Key of Life? You,
Yes, I'm familiar with it.
you remember that? Okay. Well, that was, I mean, that's probably the epitome of Stevie Wonder's musical brilliance. I mean, that album was just awesome, right? But in that album, he dedicates it to all these A-list people on it. And one of those people who was listed on that was Abdul Halim Farrakhan, right? And that was the minister's name at one time. So I don't know if the minister gave himself that name. I don't know if the imam gave himself that name. I'm not quite sure, but he had that name at one time. So clearly he liked it, all right, but I didn't. But now I've come to love it. I'm very grateful for it. I hope that one day I can live up to the lofty
What's the
divine
meaning?
meaning
What
of
does
it.
what does
It
it mean?
means forbearing. It's forbearing, right?
Forbearing.
And it means, yeah, so the tendency to rather be slow to punish. So you'd rather not punish, right? If you look up, well, the Quran says Allah has the most beautiful names. All of his names are beautiful. All of them are beautiful. So, but when I saw what Halim meant and its divine meaning, it's very touching to me. And like I said, I hope that one day I can live up to its divine essence, its divine meaning.
Beautiful. Beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing all that you have shared thus far. And I want to,
You're welcome.
it's still in the same path that we're talking about, because when I was in Phoenix with you, you talked about, we had a conversation about how to eat to live. And even you shared some of your conversations with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and what he shared. So after years of practicing how to eat to live, what have you discovered about the connection between how we feed our body and how Allah feeds our soul, and also in nutrition, right? What have you come to learn about that?
It's a wonderful question, brother. Well, to me, the dietary law that God gave to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is an underappreciated aspect of the nation. So first of all, the book How to Live, in my judgment, is a profound nation-building book. So most of us look at the book as being, about, what to eat, what not to eat. And of course, those are things that are there. But if practiced in a way that most of us don't really appreciate, if we were to try to really live that book, brother, it is a nation-building book that's not really seen. It's not very obvious. That's one. Two, the dietary law is huge with God. So we all know that the first revelation that God gave to Muhammad was to read in the name of thy Lord. But the last revelation that God gave to Muhammad was in Surah 5, the food. And it's the third verse, right? And it says, this day, it says, forbidden to you is that which dies of itself, and blood, and swine, and it gives like 11 or 13 prohibitions. Don't eat these things. And then it says, and this day have those who disbelieve despaired of your religion. This day have I chosen for you and completed my favor on you and chosen for you Islam as a religion. That all that's in that same verse. And so there is this relationship between the perfection of faith and what to eat. So we will never be the perfected Muslims or perfected Christians, perfected believers, unless we regulate our dietary law, our dietary way. So in the Quran, it also says there is this, there's several places in the Quran about feeding the needy. So it says, in the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful. Have you seen those who belie religion? Those are the one who's rough to the orphan and urges not the feeding of the needy. And then there's another place in the Quran where there is this dialogue with those in heaven and those in the fire and those in the garden. They say to those in hell, you know, what brought you into hell? And they say, they respond, they say, we're not those who prayed, nor do we urge the feeding of the needy. So they're not, again, this idea about feeding. And in the Quran, Allah, in the Bible, Allah says, well, Jesus says, do you love me? Lovest thou me? Then feed my sheep, feed them. And in the Bible, the Genesis, and it goes along with our lessons too. So biblically, in the Christian perspective, pain and suffering and death, disease has its genesis when Adam and Eve, when they ate the wrong foods. So they disobeyed, but they ate the wrong food. And our lesson says the devil taught us to eat the wrong foods. So these are, and there's other things, all of these things, they all, in my humble opinion, from my observation, they all give principle of the primacy of diet, of where it is with us. Brother Willie, remember we had the first graduation for auditors, and this was in 2010, and there was a holdback meeting, but the minister spoke to believers afterwards, and he gave us 4 things. He said that would make us valuable finished persons or products. In order, he said, was the supreme wisdom. Number 2 was the supreme technology. Number 3 was height to live. And the 4th one was the admin tech. But I've been in the nation since 1982, brother. I have not seen one final call, not one, where the height to live is not in it. Every single one, height to live is there. In addition, it's the only book where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had 2 volumes of height to live. So the primacy of the dietary law cannot be overstated. We will never be the kind of righteous persons unless we adhere to the dietary law. And so but I'm not a perfect person by any stretch of the imagination, but I try my best to live it. I try my best to eat the way God wants us to eat. Again, I have a long way to go. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I do see the value of the dietary law that God gave to us through the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Beautiful. And you know, if you study the dietary law that was given to the children of Israel, when you read the scriptures, historians say that God gave that law to them as a way to separate them from everybody else. That if they ate the way that God asked them to eat, they will look different, live different than everybody else. And when we were there in your city, and I was blessed to have the opportunity to carry the Sunday lecture, we talked about what will be the topic. One of the things that you emphasized was faith, because you have been doing series and talking about faith, right? So what has Allah showed you about faith during this season, and why do you feel it is why is it so urgent for our nation at this time?
Well, let me say this first about your lecture, brother. There were so many people who were so moved by what you had to say, and I was too. I thought, Brother Willie, you did a wonderful job, brother. It was inspiring. It was edifying. You fed us. You fed us, brother. So
All
I want to
praises be to
thank you
God.
for what you shared and what you gave. All praise be to Allah. Well, faith is everything, isn't it? I mean, so the Honorable Minister Farrakhan,
Mhm.
all that he has built with the nation is built on his faith. Right? And so we've ridden on his faith, brother. And so, and faith is also has a component of how you perceive things. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote a letter introducing study guide number 12. And he said that how we perceive reality is based on the condition of our hearts and our minds and the quality of our faith. So how we see things is predicated upon the heart, the mind, and our faith. So as you know, brother, we've been given now to study guide number 17, hypocrisy and conspiracy. And a hypocrite is a person now who has lost faith. They don't have faith anymore.
Mm.
And the beginning, the genesis of their faithless condition is doubt. Doubt is the mother of hypocrisy. Right? So when we have a person who no longer believes, they're in the ranks. And in Phoenix, Brother Willie, the Honorable Mr. Farrakhan said that Phoenix has more hypocrites than any mosque in the nation outside of Chicago. Chicago is number one. Phoenix is number two. More hypocrites. So, in other words, you have more faithless people who are here, who are masquerading as believers. They give the greetings, they have on their uniforms, they have on their suits, they have on their garments. But the Quran says like this, they're like pieces of wood, brother, with garments on. They don't believe anymore. The Quran says they used to believe, but they don't believe. So to be able to recognize in a time like this, to understand what we're dealing with, I think it's imperative. And I thought, brother, what you had to give was so valuable. It added to it. And I don't think I could have said it any better, brother, Willie, what you
Praises
did.
be.
So I'm very grateful to you. I'm very grateful to what you contributed. But I don't know about you. I have an informal poll. And that informal poll is I'm talking to virtually every believer who is going through something, brother. I mean, when
Yes.
I'm talking, I mean, they are in the throes of trials.
Yes.
Of course, not every trial is the same, but every believer, brother, is going through something. So now, for you and for me, in our role as the head administrators, for our role of trying to help stabilize the believer, to give them faith, strengthen them as they're going through something, as they're going through a very dark period. So a part of what was inspiring me was to try to help, to be a servant, to help feed us, right, to strengthen our faith, and not let it fall altogether, not let it to get to a point where we lose it completely altogether. So it was things like brother Willie, and more that was the impetus, the motivation as to why I was attempting. But again, you really did a wonderful job in
All praises
helping
due to
to
Allah.
reinforce that
And
principle, brother. Thank you, son.
it warms my heart to hear you say, how you did the informal poll, and as a result of what the data, that the information that you got from that informal poll, that guided you to do that, because that means that you're pastoring to the flock that's there. You're hearing about a condition and working to give them the guidance from the teachings from the medicine cabinet that we all need. Now, one of the things that was interesting about Phoenix, if I'm not mistaken, the Black population in Phoenix is about 3 to 4%, right?
A little more than
Or is it a
that.
little high?
Well,
Maybe
yeah,
seven, maybe
it's
seven,
single
seven
digit.
percent now.
Yeah, between 6 and 7
Yeah,
if I
seven
saw it
percent.
last.
Yeah. In the early days it was about 4, but it is increased. And you've come from Buffalo, and I would imagine the Black population in Buffalo percentage is double digits, right?
Yeah, double digit. Yes, yes, sir. It's like
Double.
in
So
Buffalo, I think in the 30s, something like that.
so it's like you're serving in two vastly different worlds, right? So what did each assignment pull out of you? And and what did each reveal about Allah's molding of you? I know Buffalo is the past, Phoenix is now. So what does each assignment pull? What did Buffalo pull out of you? What is Phoenix pulling out of you? And how do you see Allah's molding of you?
Those are very good questions, brother. Well, the first thing I think is
Praise be to
important
God.
to, I think it's the first thing is important that every believer, in a good way, but every believer
Mm,
represents a problem, right? Every believer, right?
mm,
And so, the Savior told us that Islam is mathematics and that mathematics is Islam. And so, well, what is mathematics? Well, mathematics, you can look at mathematics in many different ways, but one way of looking, of course, is problem solving. So every
mm,
single believer represents a problem. In fact, the Savior gave us a problem book. And he said that if you can solve this problem, you get the money, you get a reward, you get certain things for solving this problem. So Phoenix is different. Well, first of all, our people are all the same, but also represents differences. I've seen differences in certain culture, for example, on the West Coast. I'm talking about nation now, as compared to the East Coast. There's certain things that's different, right?
mhm,
Certain traditions, certain cultural differences, certain mindsets that's different. Phoenix here is a big magnet of migration. So you get a lot of different believers from a lot of different places here,
mm,
right? A lot from California, a lot from all over, and they migrate to Phoenix. Buffalo is not like that. Buffalo is primarily from Buffalo, right? I mean, you get some here, but you don't get a lot of people going to
mm,
Buffalo, brother, right? You get a lot of people leaving Buffalo, but a lot of people going to Buffalo. So the dynamic of Phoenix presents challenges itself. Of course, Phoenix has a very significant place in our nation. I think the Honorable Elijah called Phoenix the headquarters of the nation in the West, right? So that becomes Phoenix is also the city of
mm,
Brother Jabril, right? That's another dynamic that is very unique here. In Phoenix, like I'm looking, I'm in the mosque right now. So there, I mean, you have pockets of what you would call our people, although all of this is our people, but you have we're like an oasis in a sea of our Mexican family. So many if you go door to door here, the vast majority in Phoenix are Mexican. So while it's single digits of Shabaz's family, right? The vast majority, you have a huge percentage of our people who are Mexican. Again, so these are all challenges. When I was in Buffalo, brother, I came on the post, brother Willie, when I was 23 years old. 23.
mm,
And I didn't know what I didn't know. So a lot, brother. Oh my God. There are people who forgot more Islam than I knew. And here are people who are settled, they're mature, they have families, they have their own homes, and they've been in the nation for decades. Here I am. I hadn't been in the nation for 3 years, brother. So now there are people who they realize they realize this boy don't know what he's doing. They don't know what he's talking about, right? But they were patient. And the older I get, the more I really admire them for how they were so patient with me, despite my ignorance, brother, despite the mistakes that I made. And I made a lot of mistakes, brother. But they were patient with me. And so Buffalo was a tremendous learning experience for me. I mean, just learned a lot. And Phoenix is still a learning experience for me. Again, I'm learning all the time, brother. And I would be a fool to say I got this mastered. Not even close. Not even close. Phoenix, one thing that's very different from Buffalo is you have many members of the minister's family who are here. You have many members of the messenger's family who are here. So that adds another dynamic of Phoenix, right? So it's a very unique city. It's a beautiful city. I love Phoenix. I do. I love Phoenix. It is, brother, it's hot in the summer here.
yes.
I mean, it is, oh my God. I used to remember, brother Willie, being back east and in the summertime looking at the weather. And almost always the hottest place was Phoenix. And they were talking about Phoenix today, 110, 115, sometimes 100, more than that. I'm like, how do people live there? I mean, it was astounding to me. And if you had told me that one day I would be here too, I would have never believed it. But the summers are tough. But you know what? but the winters we go through, we endure the winters. I mean, excuse me, the summers to live this right now. So I'm looking, Brother Willie, looking at, there's not a cloud in the sky, brother. I'm
Yes.
expecting, I'm expecting to have a temperature about 70 degrees outside. So we endure the summer for this. But both Phoenix
Yeah, man.
and Buffalo, they both were a part of the journey of who I'm becoming. And my nation,
Mm,
no matter where I'm at, brother, is part of making me who and what I am, like it is with you, like it is with all of us, brother.
mm,
So I'm grateful
mm.
for the experiences that I've had, that I'm having, and if God pleases me that I live on this earth tomorrow, that I will have.
Praise be to him. I have three more questions. One of the
Sure.
things that I loved about Phoenix, which you don't see in New Orleans, was the elevation in the hills, in the
Yeah,
mountains. You drive in New
yeah,
Orleans, you see none of that. None
right.
of that, right? So one of the other things that I admire about you is you are a student of the teachings of the Most High Elijah Muhammad, in particular, a student of the supreme wisdom, right? And I know you've committed. It sounds like, would I be off if I said you got the whole book committed to memory?
Yes, I do. I'm a little rusty now, but yes, I do.
But you have the whole,
I
from
do.
the instructions to the problem book.
All
All
of it.
praises due to Allah. So talk about what advice would you, this I'm trying to put this in three. One, what advice would you give to someone who sees this and they want to accomplish the same thing? Like, what method could they use? And why is it important for us to follow what the Savior asks us to do as it relates to the lesson, which is to read it daily and commit it to heart, to
Well,
memory?
well, the first thing, um, Brother Willie, I hope I don't sound a bit spooky, but my word is bond. And people who know me, they know Brother Halim is not spooky. But I mean, so much
Mhm,
so. There's certain things that other believers that I'm a little slow to embrace. So I'm
mhm,
not the spooky guy, right? But I
mhm,
do believe I was born for the lessons. I believe that. Um, they
mhm,
had an attraction to me before I knew there was a thing called the lessons, and the
mhm,
minister would make them so attractive. And this is the early days now, and so when he would quote them so seamlessly. And then one day there was a brother who had this beautiful printed copy of Lost Found Muslim Lesson Number One, and I saw them. And I said, "Oh, this is where the minister got that from. And this is where he got that from. And this is where he got that from." So I only got them. I just thought there was some real dope stuff, right? I didn't know it was this body called the lessons, but I had this attraction for it. And then I had one day, um, so we had got the lessons, remember? And I just on my own, I just started committing them to memory. And so I started with
mhm,
the I started with Lost Foundations number one. And then I think I went to the instructional labors and whatnot. And then when I was a chaplain for the Department of Corrections, and we had a lot of of the Nation of God's and Earth, 5%ers. They would come to our meetings. They couldn't have
mhm,
their own meetings because the prison officials had labeled them as a gang, so they couldn't meet on their own. So they would come to the nations. And I asked him, I said, "Well, how do I, I told him how many of them were coming. What do I do?" He said, "Contend with them on the lessons. Contend with them." So
mhm,
I would teach when I would have in the prisons, brother, my lecture would be lessons. And so I would just do the lessons. Because with that community, brother, if you don't know your lessons, then they don't even listen to what you got to say. So you got to know your lessons. So I would know that, brother Willie, I knew them. And I would be able to, contend with them with the lessons. And I remember one day, brother, so I had all the lessons. I had instructions, lost found lesson number one, two. Of course, to be registered, you had to have student enrollment, the actual facts, and English lesson number C1. The one I didn't have was a problem book, because the problem book just seemed so esoteric. The problem book just seemed so incomprehensible. Like there's no way I can learn that. And there was no problem with me not knowing. Just like I know the sun's rising from the east, setting in the west. That it was just nature. I can't learn this. And then one day,
mhm,
brother, I'm just leafing through it. And I don't know what it was. I don't know what point it was, but one of the lessons I said, I can learn that. I started leaping again. I said, I can learn this. And brother, it's amazing what belief does for you, right? At that point, I believed I could do it. And then I did. I learned it. And the reason why I thought it was so important, one, because I just loved them. I mean, again, there was an innate attraction, an innate fascination. And now when Mr. Farrakhan made him so attractive to me, I wanted to be like him. I wanted to be able to express him how he did, because he made him so beautiful, so attractive. So I wanted to model him. The Quran says about him that Muhammad is an excellent exemplar for him who hopes in Allah in the latter day and fears Allah much. So I want to be like him. But then there were more things, but Brother Willie, I don't know who said it, but someone said it. And someone who was credible, maybe Brother Jabril, I'm not sure, but they said that we can't even see the hereafter unless we know our lessons. I think it was Brother Jabril who said that, right? So, and there were other things about the lessons that the minister said, others said that made them very compelling to me to know them. So I wanted to know them by heart. And of course, in our lesson, we're told that. So the Savior said that we have to know them by heart, recite them by heart. We have to be able to memorize them by heart. So the heart is mentioned 3 times in the lessons about heart. And that's what the minister did. He would recite them by heart. And by heart doesn't mean just without the aid of the material in front of you. You can say it from memory, but he would say them in a way that was like his. Like they were his words, and they came from him. So it was like him, from his heart. And if you didn't know there was this thing called the lessons, you thought he kind of made it up on the fly, right? Because he would say them from the heart. And so I would try to emulate his example, to emulate his way. And he said about the lessons that they contain insight into the Bible and to the Quran. He said some other things about this. So all these things that I found to be very compelling, very persuasive, and I made sure that I then committed them to memory. And I just want to think too, I would say, Brother Willie, about them. You have to want to do it. And I did. I had desire. My will was to learn them. And so back there, brother, I had no one to talk to about the lessons. So it wasn't like I could engage with other people. And so I'm talking about believers. So it had to be a single desire to want to do, because I couldn't talk to others because they didn't see the same value as I did. In fact, I'm not going to tell you who, Brother Willie, but you know some of them. There's some high-profile people who denigrate the lessons, brother. They were like, they didn't see the value in them at all. But again, and you know some of them, but I won't tell you who. I won't say that. But that wasn't my spirit. But I loved them. I loved them. And I wanted to ask the minister one day, brother. I did ask him. And if he could grant me this wish, I would love to be able to sit down. I have a ton of questions about the lessons, brother. I told you about this. You and I had a conversation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I wanted to be able to sit down and go with him and ask him about the lessons one day. So, inshallah, brother.
Beautiful. Inshallah. And I think you said something that's a key quality. The key is the love for them. And I've come to realize that Master Farah Muhammad has something for each and every believer who works to accomplish his instruction that he gave us as it relates to the lesson. He has some insight about himself, about ourselves, about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the lesson themselves for those who do this. So we have 2 questions that we're going to get.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
You sure? All right. So I wanted to share this.
Yeah. Years
ago. In fact, I first heard it at that meeting, that ministers meeting that we had with Brother Jabril in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I would hear him say it a few more times about the lessons, which I found fascinating. So he shared this story where the messenger had him get problem number 7 and 8. And had him go over it many, many times. He said, he didn't say how many. He had to go again, right? He said later on, he kind of realized why the messenger did that. He said he was giving him insight as to how you get insight into a problem book. But I think you can extrapolate that to whole lessons. He said that One is repetition, going over and over
Repetition.
and over, right? And the second thing, the second precondition to get insight, the deeper meaning of the problem book, he said you have to be motivated, but the same thing that motivates the Savior. So to the extent your
Love.
heart is like his heart, you can see into it. I heard the minister say it to me personally, brother, to me personally about the problem book. He told me, well, I heard it before. He said, but the problem book is not. Some people they go over it like like a math problem. He said that's not. It's not like that, right? He said, and I heard him say that. He told me this personally. He said one day our children, our grandchildren, and they would come to us and they would say, "No, Daddy, this is what the Savior meant by that," right? So they'll be
That's true.
born with an insight into what those lessons meant. And then Brother
That's true.
Jabril said this about lost found Muslim lesson number 1. So the Savior asked him, he said, well, what's number 1? Why is the devil selling the best part of the planet? Because the earth belongs to the original man. And knowing the devil is wicked, and there'll be black man. And knowing the devil is wicked, and there would not be peace among him, put him on the worst part of the earth, because the best part preserved for himself. The best part is an Arabian, Hosea Mecca, the color man Caucasian is the devil, Arabian, the Far Eastern border. No, I think I messed it up. Anyway, that first lesson, he said 2 things. He said, one, that the messenger said that if he would answer that question, this was later on his assignment, he would volumes with that, right? So the mercy of God is that we'd have to learn it when he's in his baby stage. And then I heard Brother Jabril said about the actual student enrollment. He said the messenger said he could take the student enrollment, those 10 question answers, brother. He said he could take a lesson, he could teach a lecture every day for 35 years and not repeat himself.
Think about that.
That gives you some insight of how much wisdom. And we're not talking about lost found Muslim lesson number 1 or number 2 or the problem book, just the order instruction to laborers. That's just what the student enrollment for 35 years. And brother, so there is so much wisdom. So those kinds of things make me
definitely. And may Allah be pleased with him, the dean of the minister, Brother Lucius B. I think it's Brother Lucius. Remember one labor's meeting, he stood up because he had taken the time to solve some of the problems in the problem book, and he gave it to the Mozambique Elijah Muhammad. And the Mozambique Elijah Muhammad looked at his answers and gave it back and said, brother, these problems don't require pen and pad, something to that degree, right?
Yeah, right.
So it's something more. But just like what you said, it starts with love. And I want to ask these last 2 questions because you talked about how you've been able to have correspondences with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, sitting with him, asking him questions, writing him, asking him questions. And so you have written the minister before. So without revealing anything private, can you share one insight, one line, one piece of guidance that permanently, like just wow, after in your
oh my God, brother, there's brother Willie, there's so much. I mean, just so much. But he is a fountain of living waters, brother. And so, but 2 kind of come to my mind. One, I don't know, I forgot what I asked him. I forgot why he said it to me, but he told me that in the scriptures, the people symbolizes water. And he said, if leadership wants to know what kind of leader they are, he said, look at the people's condition. He said, and their condition will be a reflection of what kind of leader that you are. And I forgot what I asked him, but I thought it was profound, that insight. And there's so many questions I've asked, but then this other one that always sticks with me. I'm gonna give you 2. And one, I don't know if I should tell you, brother, but I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you. I might get in trouble for this, but I might get in trouble. But so one, I remember I was asking the minister about the Savior coming by himself, and I asked him why didn't the other 24 or 23 come with him? I said because they knew they had the history, they knew he was going to come and do what he had. I said, but why didn't they come? And he told me, he said, brother, he said they're men. But the way he said it, He said they're men. And he said it's one thing to know it's coming, it's another thing to see it coming, right? And I forgot the exact words, but because it's been a while since I heard it, but he said that, here the Savior's coming to bust up the circle. They had a pretty good thing going just among themselves. So now he's coming to share this with us. Now the minister didn't tell me what I'm about to tell you. This is my insight, but this is duplicating what the in the Quran, which says, "I'm a place of rule in the earth." That's the Savior talking. Put us, and the scientists are saying, "What you gonna place?" Except for those who call, they're looking at us and they disagree with him, right? When he's doing that, because they're looking at us and these are savages. But he tells them, "Yeah, but I know what you know or not." Now again, the minister didn't say that, but this is Brother Halim saying so. But
that's
so
real.
you think so? That's my insight.
I believe that. Because how they looked at us when you look in the problem book, they were like, "Man, you're only going to get 144,000."
Yeah, 144,000 of us, right? Absolutely, wasting your time. So that was,
and that's compared to millions of black folks. That's nothing.
Absolutely, yes, right. Here's the one I don't know if I should tell you, but I'm going to tell you. He didn't tell me not to say it, but I don't know if the timing is right. It might not be good timing. But one day,
but don't. What? So you want to say it, you don't have to.
Well, I don't know. He didn't say not to say it, but it might be, it might not be wise. But I'll say.
Okay. Well,
go ahead.
Do you want to share? You don't.
I want to share it. I do.
Go ahead.
But I don't know. Right. So he and I were going together. I was going through a very dark time. It was my Job experience. And he had me come to the farm in Michigan. And so we're driving back together, just he and I, in his vehicle. And I'm again, questions I'm asking him. So I asked him about, I said, brother, two questions I asked. One, I asked him, I said, well, they were the other part. I said, Dr. Halim had said, because I remember Dr. Halim had this conversation with him years ago, decades ago. And he told me that as there's one person who is wise, the wisest in knowledge and wisdom and power, understanding, Allah, God, he said there's a singular counterpart, one person. I never heard that before. And so I found it fascinating, but I would share, every once in a while I share that conversation with Dr. Halim, and I found that very provocative. Now Dr. Halim didn't say this, but I saw this. So when we're told in 2 Thessalonians that that day won't come till be fallen away first, and the man of sin be revealed. So I always took the man of sin being a people. So here now, Dr. Halim is representing the man of sin to be an individual, not a people, a person, a singular one. So I shared this with the minister. I said what Dr. Halim said. And he kind of hesitated. He kind of paused. He said, yes. And I said, and then this came to my mind, by the way. I said, the Pope? He said, yes, it's the Pope. Wow, I never heard that before. And then I asked him this. Again, I don't know if I should be saying it, but he didn't tell me not to say it. A lot of times he'll say, don't say this. He didn't tell me not to, so, but at the timing may not be right. And then I said to him, I asked him about the vision where, remember the vision he had, and the Pope had given this black pearl, right? And the messenger said that called him his worst enemy, right? He said, but I'm gonna kill him anyway, right? And I asked the minister to reconcile. I said to the apostle, I said, but you call, these wicked Jews Satan. But the messenger said that the Pope was his worst enemy. I said, could you reconcile that? And he said this, brother. I said, how you know he's not? I said, how you know he's not Jewish? That blew me away. I didn't have the presence of mind to probe further, right? No. But he said that, he put out there. He just said, how do you know he's not? Right. So let's go up.
No, go ahead, make that point because you just brought something up.
But no, I'm done with the point. I didn't. So he didn't elaborate. I didn't have the presence of mind to probe further, but he told me that, right? So
Wow.
he asked me questions that I'd asked that kind of, left an indelible impression on me. And there are others too, but those, they come to mind immediately. But he told me that.
Wow. Now, it's interesting that you say that, because on Friday in study group, we were talking about this, and I'll encourage you to go back and read it. In the pages 124 to maybe 127, and that study guide, Conspiracy and Hypocrisy, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan begins that study guide expanding. He's given an expanded definition of what is considered to be Jewish.
Yes, that's a good point.
He talks about one that has an exclusivity of mind. And of course, we know there's a definition of those who practice Judaism. But he also said it's a mindset of somebody who has, I'm paraphrasing, that has a thinking about opposing God and his servant. I'm paraphrasing.
That's
so in that sense,
yes,
you see what I'm saying?
That's a good point, brother. Until you said that,
mindset, because some people look at it just that. Yeah. And it just hit me Friday. I'm like, wow. And I was making a point to the believers, like, don't just get caught up on this, the synagogue of Satan. Look at what he's expanding it. He's letting us know. He's giving us, man, it's those who have this mindset. So when we look at it in that, he falls directly into that.
That, brother, I think that's an excellent point. Excellent point. And but those kinds of things, I think I've been very blessed, brother, because I came in the early days with the minister, 82. I wasn't the exact early days, but relatively speaking, it's been 43 years now. I've been trying to help him. Time goes so fast. And I've been blessed to have the wonderful opportunity to pose questions to him. I've been like Brother Jabril, but in my own small way, I've had these opportunities. And to be honest with you, brother, I love the minister's lectures. I love when he teaches. I think his question answers. I do. I think for me, I think his interviews are even more. I mean, I think it's unfair to even have that kind of comparison, right? But I think his interviews, to me,
as a student minister, you would agree with this, that when people ask you a question, it allows us to be able to specifically focus. You speaking from the rostrum, Allah is knowing it'll be one part of what you say in a lecture that will touch somebody. But when somebody asks you a question on our YouTube page, nearly every week we get comments of people who not in the Nation of Islam. And if you go and read these comments, it's mind blowing. Them commenting on his interview with Don Lemon. And the minister was very transparent about his operation. And you could go back. I would encourage people to go on our YouTube page and just read through the comments of what people are saying about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and how blown away they are. And it was like, man, he looked like this at this age and he looks even better now, right? Well, in regards with that, go ahead.
What about Donahue? Donahue. I mean, Donahue is still impacting people. But those Donahue interviews. I mean, I'm sorry.
The ones he did with the brother the interview that he did with the brother who used to be on Jeff Johnson is one of my favorite ones.
Yeah.
Jeff Johnson, who on BET. That was a powerful one.
So I now agree.
Man, thank you. I agree. As we get ready to close,
yes, sir.
I want to ask you this question, and then there's a tradition I want to start. I'm give credit where I got this from. I watched Diary of a CEO, and they do this, and I want to begin to start doing the same. And I want to give a shout out to all of those who are tuned in, who are leaving comments. We see you. We love your support. Continue to tune in every weekend and watch it on YouTube and share it and all of that stuff, and make sure you subscribe. Here's the question I want to ask you before. I'm saying that the last question, I'm going to ask you to leave a question that I will ask our next guest. You don't know who the next guest is, but you'll just be able to ask. But just think about that. But here's the last question I want to ask you. After all these years in ministry, your trials, your victories, your assignments, and the growth, what do you pray that believers ultimately receive from your service and your example?
Well, that's a very, very deep question. I think the thing that I would hope people would leave with would be the thing I was attracted to with the minister. Like I said, I was attracted to, how handsome he was and is. I was attracted to his brilliance, his mind, his articulation. All those things I found to be very, very compelling to me, very persuasive. But the thing that touched me the most with him was his sincerity, his heart. I didn't understand all the things that he said, but I believe that he believed them. So I didn't think he was performing. I didn't think he was doing things, you know, in a very shallow way to get attention. But I thought that he was doing those things sincerely. And I would hope that my service, whether I'm in a post or not, I would hope that my walk with God would be perceived in a similar way. I'm an imperfect man. I've got my flaws. I'm struggling to be a better person. But I hope that I'm perceived as being sincere, brother. I'm perceived to be someone who is approaching this with a pure heart. Well, a heart that's being purified. I think it's because my heart is not there yet, but a heart that's being purified. If I could be perceived like that, brother, then I think I would be pleased.
Praise be to Allah. And with that being said, what will be your Assalamu alaikum to our brother, student minister Chad from the great city of
Brother
Tampa
Seth,
Bay?
I know my brother
Sends
Chad.
the greetings.
Yes. Give my brother Chad the
So
greetings.
will do. As we get ready to close, what would be one question that we could ask our next guest that we're going to have on the show? What would be a question you would like us to ask?
Would it be a believer?
Yes.
Yeah. I think the question that I would probably ask them is, what was it that brought you to faith? So, because the minister can say a whole lot of things, but what was it about what he said? Because some people are attracted to the dietary laws, some are attracted to the business, some are attracted to, to looking for a mate. Some come because they're looking for a husband, some looking for a wife. But I always find what was it in the teachings that attracted you? What was that thing? To me, I always find that to be very, very profound, brother.
Thank you, my brother. And
Thank
once
you.
again, you see people are loving what you're sharing and very beneficial. And I personally feel your sincerity. I'm not gonna use this opportunity, you all, to tell you about one of the things I think he
Don't go there.
might have worked on this since. I'm not
Brother
gonna
Willie,
let
don't go
y'all know
there.
what something
Brother
that he
Willie,
did
don't go
around the
there.
game of chess. I'm not
Don't go
gonna
there, Brother
I'm
Willie.
not gonna taint all the
Don't go
good work
there.
that he did, family. Maybe when you see,
Don't go
if you
there.
see me doing Savior's Day, and you say, "Hey, tell me what Brother Halim did," I'll let you all know what he
Brother
did.
Willie, don't even
All I'm
go
gonna
there.
say
Don't go
all I'm
there,
gonna say
brother.
is he's merciless when it comes to that chessboard, family. He's
Stop it,
merciless.
brother.
He's beat up
Stop it,
on
brother.
me, but I saw him beat up on somebody else. So thank you, brother, for being
Thank
our
you.
guest. Man, I thoroughly enjoyed your
Thank you.
responses, and it motivated me. Give the believers the greetings, and assalamu alaikum.
Well, may Allah continue. Thank you for the honor, Brother Willie. May Allah continue to bless you, brother. I'll talk to you soon, sir. Wa alaikum salam.
Yes, sir. We definitely will talk. So for those who get back on there, we thank you all for tuning in to the show. I have a testimony, and we say all praises due to Allah for these for the responses, and we really appreciate everybody who left a comment and who's tuning in. Even if you didn't share anything, we really appreciate you. I can't stress that enough. We encourage you all to keep tuning in. Check out our social media, find out who our next guest is, and you'll see is actually we actually have one of our sisters who's going to be our next guest on our I have a testimony. So as we get ready to close out, I will say this: if you have a business or anything where you would like for us to talk about advertising your business, just hit us up. Send an email at browm46@icloud.com, or reach out to me on social media, and we can You do it. So I'm like a brother, brother Carrier. That's top. Great interview we did with him too. And I see you, my brother, with those Step in the Name of Love classes. So I'm like a brother Barry as well. Good seeing you. But as I was saying, if you have a business or anything you're trying to promote, it's very affordable. That many people watch this show, but we would appreciate it. Also, if there's any people that you would like for us to interview, any suggestions, let us know. Submit their names in the nation, outside the nation. If they're willing to be interviewed, we'll be willing to do it. So as I get ready to close out, this is your brother Willie Muhammad. We thank you all again for tuning in, and peace.
God came to us to seek and to save that which was lost. He raised a man from among us.
He, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, laid the foundation. What I'm doing is something that comes from him through me, and the thing that he uses in me to do the work is my faith in him and the word that he taught. To produce men and women who wanted to clean up their life and build an independent nation for the glory of God.